I'm Dr. Duke with The New American, and this is my take on the news. Well, you remember the simpler times, ladies and gentlemen, back when we were in grade school, when there was such a beautiful thing as Arbor Day. Remember when you would sit there and the teachers would draw trees on the board, and we'd all read Joyce Kilmer's poem, I think I shall never see something as lovely as a tree. Remember that? And it was kind of a soft-minded do-goodedness that you get in public schools, just reminding you how important the natural world was. And now you think about the degree to which Arbor Day, right? The idea that we plant and love trees. Arbor Day has been completely obliterated. I believe it's actually Friday of this week. Arbor Day has been completely obliterated by today, which is Earth Day. Earth Day was created by some really weird characters in 1970. If you ever have time, type in the Earth Day movement and who its founder was. You'll find out the founder of Earth Day was fond of killing his relations, his family members, and composting them, right? He was a murderer, but he was a murderer with an environmental bent, because whenever he killed, he composted the dead body. And that, of course, is the creepy origin of what has become a national holiday for globalists. This is the 4th of July. World Earth Day is the 4th of July for globalists because it gives them, for the 50 years now that we've had to deal with this, Earth Day has become, with every decade that goes past, more and more radical, more and more progressive, more and more globalist, and more fascist in its ideology. If you're reading the news today, the only thing in the last 3 months that has really been able to bump coronavirus off to the side a little bit, it's not any of the other things we've been dealing with. It's not money issues. It's not Chinese aggression in the South China Sea. No. The one thing that seems to be getting some airplay in the world of coronavirus is global warming. Global warming has been an afterthought by the American people for a lot of years now. And all the most recent polls, global warming issues, environmental issues rank really low on what American and global communities worried about. And so along comes the virus, and you think think about the despair of our environmentalist globalists, as the entire world has stopped paying attention to the UN fund for globalization, the environmental funds across the world, how everybody's completely stopped listening. Global warming has been a no-go for the progressive leftists. Even in the last few Democrat debates, before they were shut down and before we got Joe Biden as the nominee, we really didn't have a single instance where in those last few debates the environment was even a major issue among Democrat candidates. They recognized that this was not a major national worry for Americans who had other things to worry about. And now you've got the crisis of the pandemic of coronavirus. And what's really interesting is to watch the news today, because they are giving, particularly left-wing sites, particularly the mainstream media, are giving a lot of attention today, a little bit away from coronavirus and toward environmentalism. And you know the reason why. Because what the globalists have decided to do is to use the virus as an excuse to talk about globalization and ecology, radical environmentalism. We have the Roman Catholic Pope. And this is a staggering thing to point out. The Roman Catholic Pope is the leader of the largest congregation of Christians in the world. Apparently, there's about close to 2 billion Roman Catholics in the world. Catholic, Roman, and Eastern Orthodox Catholics in the world. That's a big number, 2 billion. And he is the face of the Roman Catholic version of Christianity in the world. Here's a guy who's supposed to believe in a God who supersedes nature, right? A God who is bigger than nature. He's not the cult leader of some pagan church, right? He's not some Wiccan talking about fairies and sprites and the internal souls of the feminization of the human soul. All of that kind of pseudo religious stuff that you get with the new paganization of the country. He is a guy who's supposed to be lobbying for a God who transcends nature. But if you've paid any attention to what the Pope has been up to, having almost pagan rituals in the Amazon, actually now he has come out today on Earth Day, and he's basically said something shocking. The Pope has said that the virus is a consequence of what we've done to the Earth. It's not God necessarily punishing us. It's nature. An animated, cognitive, pagan idea of the natural world. The world is revolting against our cruelty, our neglect, our refusal to get our acts together, our destruction of the planet. And the Pope actually said that Mother Nature, the Earth would never forgive us for what we've done. This is a staggering thing for a Christian leader to say, let alone the Roman Catholic pontiff with his billions of followers. The idea is that God may forgive you. It's Orthodox Christianity to argue, it's Orthodox Christianity, period, to recognize that the God of the New Testament is a God of forgiveness, that there is really not much of anything we can do that God won't forgive us for if we are genuinely sorry and willing to repent for it. But along comes the Pope and elevates nature apparently to a level above God, because nature won't forgive. The earth won't forgive, right? And that's the deity on this day that the Roman Catholic Pope wants to celebrate. Let's celebrate Earth Day by pointing out how nature and nature's God, because that's exactly what I don't mean the constitutional sense of that, the God who made nature, the God who's found in nature for Francis, right? This is the God who won't forgive us. And that's the only God that is mentioned today in Francis's orations. This is what he's concerned about. And why? You look at the intersections today. Barack Obama, who's been largely in a bunker somewhere, probably cackling to himself about Joe Biden winning the election or winning the nomination. We have a rare instance where Obama has ventured out from his Martha's Vineyard seaside property to actually do something. And what is the thing that he's done today? He's got together with his wife, Michelle, and they have planted a tree. One of those good old Arbor Day things, right? He's planted a tree very publicly. The reporters turned out, and Obama made the following statement, that the environmental degradation, global warming, is going to be infinitely worse in terms of its results with regard than the coronavirus. So can you imagine if he was president right now in the midst of this global warming, in the midst of this global pandemic? He's made it clear in his statements today, as has the Roman Catholic Pope, as have progressive leaders all across the world, as has the United Nations, has made it very clear that the real focus, even in the middle of all this suffering, should be the environment. And how many people have you heard over the last 2 or 3 weeks? How many celebrities have you heard come forward and blame the coronavirus on an angry Mother Nature? What did Spike Lee say? I mean, hardly a meteorologist. Spike Lee and dozens of celebrities like him have come out recently and said that the coronavirus is the Earth's punishment for how we've been treating her. These absolutely radical left-wing Hollywooders who don't believe in the idea of a transcendent God mock the idea of a God who supersedes nature. They have no problem deifying the world we live in. Go back to Barack Obama. If the seas are really rising, if we're in the kind of danger Barack Obama says we are, tell you what, when Barack Obama sells his seaside property on the East Coast because he's terrified of the water levels swallowing up, when he actually dumps his property to demonstrate his fear, then I'll take him seriously. And the same thing goes with the Pope. The one thing you expect the Pope to be aware of is the Gospels. If there's one thing you would expect a Roman Catholic leader to be aware of, it would be what the Gospels have to say. And ultimately, who's in charge and who forgives and to whom should we direct our solicitations? It is not the planet. It is not Mother Earth. It is not some weird sense of the globalized pagan community. It's something bigger than that. It is a remarkable thing in the modern world, and I think it's a maxim now, we've seen enough of this, that you cannot talk about the environment without also talking about globalization. Globalization and environmentalism now. In fact, you could make an argument. 20 years ago, we were arguing very correctly that the face of communism in the 1990s was the face of the environmental movement. Many failed communists switched immediately over to the global warming movement. Now it's something even bigger than that. The global, it's not about communism anymore. It's about globalism and global tyranny, which would ultimately be communistic in its face. We've went from having failed Soviets, failed communists embracing environmentalism, to the entire global left seeing environmental lies and dishonesty, the lies of the global warmers. I'm not talking about the scientists, I'm talking about the sociologists, the professors, the politicians, the Hollywood rejects, who are using climate change as a push towards globalism. One world government to force climate change. This pandemic was written for them. They're actually jealous. the left, of how much attention the pandemic is getting and taking away from their globalist